What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Outpost. My name is Dallas, and if you've been watching any of our other rankings, you would have heard already. Unfortunately, Jay is not able to join us. Our scheduling just did not line up, and we really needed to get these rankings out to you before this final draft weekend. So I went ahead and rolled through all these solo. That being said, all these rankings that I am going over are a combination consensus of both of ours. We take both of our rankings, add them together, and whatever the number ends up being, we go in order of that. And so this year, as I said in our others, we did things a little bit differently, and we did things by tiers like you're starting to see a lot more often. And the main reason for that is so that when you draft these guys, if you miss out on one, it's not that big of a deal. You just take somebody else in that tier. They're all kind of interchangeable with each other and not that big of a discrepancy. And so that's why we did that. It's a lot more reliable for you going into your drafts. And so today we are going over our tight ends. So go ahead and kicking things off with our tier 1 of tight ends. We are both ironically not ironically, it makes sense, but I think it's funny that we both drew our line here. Our tier 1 tight ends consist only of Travis Kelce. And that is primarily, yes, the next two guys that you're going to hear are definitely worthy of being drafted where they're going. That being said, there's still a massive gap between them and Travis Kelce. He's in a tier of his own. He's somebody that if finally this year, like I said in our running backs episode, there is our tier 1 and tier 2 running backs, and the way I described our tier 2 running backs was guys that I am comfortable drafting before Travis Kelce. Once those guys are gone, which for us that ended at like the Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Aaron Jones, right there in that range. Once those guys are gone, I'm taking Travis Kelce. It's especially in PPR, and if you have a tight end premium, move him up even higher. Travis Kelce is an absolute stud, and he is absolutely worth his draft cost. If you're at that back end of the one and can get him on the turn, make sure you do so, especially, again, in PPR and tight end premium leagues. He's such a cheat code at that tight end position. And the way a lot of times I like to look at it, because a lot of people will look at it and be like, man, I'm really struggling by the time it hits my wide receiver 3 or my first flex or something like that, is you can view Travis Kelce as your wide receiver 1. And when you get to your wide receiver 2/3, if that production's higher than what you would have gotten at tight end, then you succeeded in drafting Travis Kelce early, because your overall points is what you're looking for. And so Travis Kelce, closest thing to a sure thing you're going to get. He's the powerhouse tight end of the Chiefs offense. Been the tight end 1 for like the last 5-6 years straight. There's really not much to say on him. Draft Travis Kelce, guys. It's really that simple. Moving on to tier 2 here, and we have at number 2, George Kittle. Number 3, Darren Waller. I have George Kittle at 2 and Darren Waller at 3, and Jay has the vice versa of that. Darren Waller at 2, George Kittle at 3. I personally believe Kittle is going to take his step back up and return to where he was prior to the injuries, and so I think he's going to come out, demand a very high target share, but I completely understand the argument with Darren Waller. I just think there's some guys on the team that finally take a step forward that allow his target share to come down just slightly. Between Kenyon Drake, you got whoever you want to call your shot on Ruggs and Edwards. I don't think it's going to be both. I think it'll be one or the other, but it could be both. Again, you just have reasons for Darren Waller's target share to come down just a little bit. That being said, that's why I have him at 3, but I am not by any means going to split hairs or fight anybody over wanting to take him over George Kittle, because it's completely understandable. Again, tight end premiums, I'm taking these guys, but in most cases, if it's not Travis Kelce, I'm probably not taking either of these two. I'm waiting till later. That being said, these guys are worth their draft capital. It's just kind of how I feel about some of the guys coming up. So that rounds out our tier 2 of tight ends, George Kittle and Darren Waller. Tier 3, this is pretty obvious, pretty consistent. You're seeing it everywhere. It's the same 3 guys, and that is going to be Kyle Pitts, TJ Hockenson, and Mark Andrews. And so at 4 and 5, we kind of have Pitts and Hockenson split. I have TJ Hockenson at 4, and he has TJ Hockenson at 5. I have Kyle Pitts at 6. He has Kyle Pitts at 4. And so it's kind of right here. It's an even split. I think Hockenson's going to see such a significant workload that I have him higher, especially in PPR. Tight end premiums, Hockenson is a absolute value where he goes. And so for me, I believe in that a lot more than the rookie, leap of Pitts, but I definitely believe in Pitts as well. So I have him at 6. Moving on to Pitts, I think he's going to be able to jump in. I don't think he delivers on what they lost in Julio Jones, but I definitely think he delivers on, I think he breaks the tight end rookie record. That's almost required at this point for him to be able to deliver on his draft costs, and I don't think that's going to be an issue for him because of how they plan on using him. I just like some of these guys right here a little bit better. I trust them a little bit more, especially with the offense as a whole. By all means, full steam ahead if you want to take Kyle Pitts there, absolutely. The one thing I just want to make sure I emphasize is he is not in the tier with George Kittle and Darren Waller. You should not be taking him with those guys, he should be down lower. And because I can get Hockenson and Andrews after him a lot of times, I end up going that route, or I just pass on all three of these guys. Which leads to our next guy at 6 in this tier. Our last one in tier 3 is Mark Andrews. Big believer in Lamar Jackson taking a step forward in the passing game this year, and I think Mark Andrews is going to be the focal point of that happening. And so he should see a higher target share. His target share is probably going to stay the same, but I think they're going to have more targets in this offense. I think they're going to pass the ball some more, and so not a huge leap in that, but I do think he delivers a little bit more on the PPR side, and then he's going to be the touchdown target. That's just the way it is in Baltimore. So you should feel very comfortable with any of these three guys as your tight end one, and that's kind of where the cutoff is for guys that you can for sure know and lock in as your one and never have to worry. But we do have these next two guys as the last guys we're comfortable kind of having that role with, and that's going to kick off our tier 4 tight ends. At number 7, we have Tyler Higbee, and number 8, we have Robert Tonyan. And so both of these guys are my two favorite to target in drafts. You can get them in round 10 and 11 in Superflex, and even later, or about the same, honestly, and regardless of what format you're in. But regardless, the point being is they are a steal in your drafts at how late they are. You can focus on your skill positions and still secure these guys and be more than comfortable throwing them out week after week. Tyler Higbee, again, we believe in Stafford taking a big step forward. We've seen him focus on tight ends before in the past and succeed. And I think with the combination of all the weapons there, and especially with Cam Akers going down, you're going to see that type of target that running backs and tight ends usually split. I think Higbee is going to see a little bit more now because nobody's quite the pass catcher that Cam Akers was on the team. Henderson's pretty close, but again, I do think a few more targets go his way because of that. And so all in all, you should be very comfortable with Higbee. And then Robert Tonyan, touchdown machine from a quarterback who is also a touchdown machine. And that's assuming he takes no steps forward. If he does take steps forward and gets more work in the receiving game and holds consistency at his touchdowns, then by all means, I do think you could see him take a slight step down at touchdown because, as I said in our wide receivers and quarterbacks episode, I do think Rodgers throws a little bit less. But that being said, it's still going to be Rodgers. He's still going to come out and deliver. He's doing things his way now. Robert Tonyan is your last one you should be comfortable throwing in weekly without really concern. But these two guys are guys that we definitely could be wrong on. And so there could be a slight, shift midseason where you may have to stream somebody based on matchups. But for the most part, these are the last two that I want to walk out of my draft with as my tight end one. But that's going to transition us to our next tier here, which is our tier 5 tight ends. There's 9 Noah Fant, 10 Logan Thomas, and 11 Gerald Everett. And so at number 9, Noah Fant, I have him at 8, and Jay has him all the way down at 15. He's a lot lower on him than I am, and that's completely understandable. I just think he's got that big playability where he's going to break away for a play here and there every single game, and it's really all it takes for a tight end to end up finishing consistently. And so although he is a little bit more risky than some of these guys, I do think his ceiling is pretty high, especially if things roll the right way in Denver and they take a step forward. That being said, I completely understand anybody who's a little wary of him. He actually goes a little bit higher than I'm comfortable taking him in drafts because, like I said, we just had Higbee and Tonyan ahead of him, and they go after him in drafts. So I usually don't end up with Fant. That being said, if you do take him, that's kind of the shot you're calling, is that he's going to deliver on those big-time plays a little bit more than not. And so moving on to our number 10, Logan Thomas. This is somebody that Jay is a lot higher on than me. He has him at 7. I have him down at 16. I just believe in Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel and Antonio Gibson. Now De'Ami Brown's there as well, stepping up, and I think all that eats into Logan Thomas's workload. I do not think he's going to be as featured of a focal point as he was last year, but I definitely can see the path where I'm just way too low on him. And so with how late he goes in drafts, he's definitely worth the shot. I just personally am lower, but Jay will sit and tell you he's absolutely a sure thing. Not a sure thing, but he's very, very reliable, and that he's somebody you should be targeting because of how cheap his ADP is. And so, again, you kind of have to call your shot with Logan Thomas. Do you really think he's going to be still featured, or do you think he's going to take a step back? I'm on the take a step back side, but he's definitely still a tight end one in our rankings here at number 10. Number 11 is one of my favorite late tight ends, probably my favorite late tight end in drafts, is Gerald Everett. I have him at 11. Jay has him at 13. I do think, again, as I've said in pretty much every episode we've had now for these rankings, I think Russell Wilson got his way this offseason in that big dispute they had, and then everything was suddenly roses and all was fine. I think he's going to be able to cook again as he started the year last year because they switched to running. The team, yeah, sure, they went on a nice stretch only to just lose in the playoffs again. And so I do think Russell Wilson got his way. They're going to be passing the ball a lot more. And as we've seen in the past, Russell Wilson can feature a tight end that we all really, really enjoy having on our teams. And I think that's going to be Gerald Everett. I think he's one of the best tight ends that Russell Wilson's ever had outside of Jimmy Graham. And so I do think he can finally deliver on what his hope has been for the last few years in Los Angeles. And so now I think he's going to be the featured focal point of the tight end room in Seattle, and that's going to be valuable, especially for a guy you can grab with your last pick in your drafts. I usually like walking out of my drafts with him as my tight end too, as my backup that I can throw in if he starts getting really well, or as a really, really good trade piece for somebody struggling at that position later on. I just think he's going to deliver on what you need. And so that's going to round out our tier 5 at tight end. This next tier, tier 6, is going to be our tight ends 12 through 16, and 12 being Rob Gronkowski, 13 being Dallas Goedert, 15 is Mike Gesicki, and 16 is Jared Cook. Gronk I have at 13. Jay has him at 12. He's just going to be a reliable guy for Tom Brady, but he's one of the last guys I'm okay with throwing in, just if I have no other choice. But I'm definitely going to be taking somebody else with him that's got a lot higher upside, just in case they hit and I can just move on from Gronk at that point. But that being said, he's our number 12. Dallas Goedert at 13. Like we mentioned, I'm not a fan of Goddard. I think his ADP is way too high. I have him at 14. Jay has him at 11. Both of us have him behind where he's going in drafts. So honestly, unless for some reason Zach Ertz just really is not a non-factor, and I don't think that'll be the case because he looks like he's being used in the preseason, I really don't want either of these guys in Philadelphia. They're going to be a big help to Jalen Hurts, but not a big help to your fantasy teams. I'm passing on him because of where he's going in drafts. If he falls to a point where the value is just too hard to pass up, then by all means. But unless that's the case, I'm not walking out of any drafts with Dallas Goedert on my team. Mike Gesicki, again, I believe in a lot of the weapons around him that are going to be taking a step forward. So I want to give a shout out to, I believe it was Tate that kind of said this to me. I was going into the offseason pretty hyped on Gesicki, and then they made a really good point of, how many mouths are there to feed in a team that's really not going to have that crazy of a high passing offense. And so do you really want to put your eggs in that basket? And with how high he's going in drafts, I can't do that yet. The preseason does look good for the tight ends in Miami, but we'll see how that actually translates on the field. He could be somebody that you pick up off the waiver wire week 1 or 2 if he ends up not getting drafted. But right now, again, he's going higher than I would like. There's guys like Gerald Everett I would rather have later, and so I usually don't end up with him. Jared Cook, this one is primarily here because of Jay. Jay has him at 9. I am fading him big time all the way down to 24. Mainly because I believe in Donald Parham. Not that he's going to be significant in fantasy, just more so enough to cause Jared Cook not to be. But I definitely see the path of him just being a big, big part of the offense when it comes to being the end zone target. And so if that's the case, then by all means, full steam ahead. But again, tight ends, you're getting to that range here where you just really don't care. You're looking for upside, and he does have it as the tight end, as the touchdown target guy. So we'll see if that's how things go on. He's somebody you can draft late enough to where you see week 1 if he's used or not. If not, just drop him for somebody else. That's going to round out our tier 6. Our tier 7 is just 2 guys, which is 17 is Zach Ertz and 18 is Jonnu Smith. Zach Ertz, Jay has him at 14. I have him down at 22. Jonnu Smith, I have at 15, and Jay has him at 20. And so for me, Zach Ertz is somebody I'm not interested in at all, but Jay will tell you that it looks like they're going to be using heavy 2 tight end sets, so you could find some value here in him with how late he's going in drafts. Jonnu Smith, for sure, is somebody that I think has a really high upside, could end up leading this entire team in targets. I'm not quite sure. I'm a big believer in Jacoby Myers. I think he ends up being the main focal point here, but Jonnu Smith is somebody that if Everett is gone for whatever reason, I'm going to try to pick up Jonnu Smith as my tight end too. That is the big upside play. And so if you end up with Gronk, somebody like Jonnu is the guy I like to pair with that just for the upside. So our last tier here, just running through real quick, is our tier 8 guys. It's 19 is Hunter Henry, 20 is Austin Hooper, 21 is Blake Jarwin, 22 is Cole Kmet, 23 is Evan Ingram. These are kind of the guys that, honestly, I don't know why you're drafting any of them outside of just it's a deep league, tight end premium, you need the depth. whatever the case is, these are all guys that you just need to keep your eyes on the waiver wire after week 1, just kind of see how they're using their offenses. Blake Jarwin's one that stands out to me here because he's somebody that we all kind of believed in going into last year, and then he got hurt, so it really depends on how he comes off of that. Cole Kmet's another one, how his link has looked really well with Justin Fields. Once Fields rolls around, is this somebody you want to have? Hunter Henry is mainly just, we don't know, honestly, if he's going to be the blocking guy or if he's just going to be the possessional guy. I do think Jonnu Smith's going to be the one that gets a little bit more involved in this offense. So Hunter Henry might just do more of what he's always done, and that makes him a safe bet. And then Austin Hooper, touchdown guy, that's pretty much it there, and I'm not drafting him. But and then Evan Ingram did lead that team in targets last year. The team does look abysmal right now, so even if he does again this year, I'm really not that interested in it, but we're listening him here. So that is going to finish it for our tight ends. So guys, if you haven't watched the other episodes, make sure you go do for our rankings. Have a great draft weekend. We wish you all the best. Sorry for getting these out right before the last of those of you that already completed, but maybe these rankings will help you make some trades and stuff like that. So that being said, have a great draft weekend, guys. Good luck in your drafts, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.